Hello everybody. Today we're going to be going through a very powerful deck. Just before I start the video, I'm sorry that I'm sick, but I hope you do enjoy today's first deck tech. So this one is Sultai mid-range. Well, it's Sultai control. It has a few win conditions that we'll talk about after I show all the cards. So first is Find Finality. You can either find, which return 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, or you can finality. So you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, then all creatures get -4/-4 until end of turn. Not only is it good board wipe, but it makes your creatures even stronger, which is of course something we all want. Next, we're going down to 5 mana cards with Yargle, Glutton of Urborg. 5 mana for a 9/3. That's it. He's one of the win conditions. As you'll see, he has great synergy with another creature in the deck that we'll talk about a bit later. We're only running 1 copy of that. Next, another 5 mana card, Underrealm Lich. In my opinion, this is a very underrated card, especially because of how powerful it is. 5 mana for a 4/3 creature zombie elf shaman. If you will draw a card, instead look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put 1 into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Then has the same thing as a Donto Vanguard, pay for life, and becomes indestructible. It's a very powerful card. Not only does it survive a lot of destroy effects, because the life loss is not that much for an indestructible, but it's also very good on defense, and if you can get this thing out, you're going to be drawing all the control magic you want, and even your win conditions. Next, we have a Russian card, but basically... I know, sorry, some of these came from Russia. So, a 4 mana card that says you draw 2, and then you create a colorless... It's basically divination. You pay 4, draw 2 cards, and you create a treasure token. It's basically divination with an extra cost, but you create a treasure, which is arguably better. We only run 1 of those. Next is Circuitous Route. 4 mana, search your library for up to 2 basic land and/or gate cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. This is good for a ramp, and you can just use this when you're not under threat. You can use this to find your guild gates, which is really good. Overall, just a really solid card. Good for ramp. We run 2 of those. Next is Ravenous Chupacabra. I hate this card so much, but it's undeniably good. 4 mana for a 2/2 that destroys a creature when it enters the battlefield. Nothing much to say besides good spot removal. 4 mana and you get a chump blocker out. We only run 1 of those. Next is Nightveil Predator. 4 mana for a flying death touch hexproof 3/3. Whoa, that's a lot of abilities. Essentially, it's a good blocker in the air, or you can beat your opponents down with it because they need to match it with something. And it's always going to take something down with it, unless, of course, they have their own Zatalpa. We only run 1 of those. Next is Devious Cover-Up. 4 mana, counter target spell. If it was countered that way, exile it instead, and then you can shuffle up to 4 cards from your graveyard into your library. This helps us counter our own mill because of stuff like Underrealm Lich. We're going to be putting a lot of cards into our graveyard. We have some synergy with that. But overall, it just stops us from getting milled, and it's a good counterspell, especially against creatures that can benefit from being in the graveyard. We run 2 copies of those. Next, another win condition, Vraska Golgari Queen. 4 mana for a legendary planeswalker that says its uptick is +2. You may sacrifice another permanent. If you do, you gain 1 life and draw a card. I really like this because if you're late in the game, you can start sacrificing your lands to start drawing cards and getting life. -3, also really good. Destroy target permanent with CMC 3 or less. And then its ultimate basically says, if a creature you control does damage to a player, they lose the game. Very powerful card. One of our win conditions, so we run 2 of those. Next is Repudiate Replicate. You can either Repudiate, which is counter target activated or triggered ability, or you can Replicate, which creates a token that's a copy of target creature you control. Replicate is something you're going to be using a lot because it is pretty stupidly powerful in my opinion. Although Repudiate can be used to catch out your opponents if they are banking on some crazy effect. Next, Blood Operative, 3 mana for Vampire Assassin with lifelink and is a 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, you can exile a card from graveyard. This is good against decks that try and recur creatures, such as the mono black deck I showed off. This is the first one in the series. And then whenever you surveil, you can pay 3 life and return it to your hand. So not only does this allow you to keep exiling things from graveyards, but it also can be used in times of need to get a chump blocker out. The lifelink is also just really good. Overall solid card, but we only run one of those. Next is another board wipe for token decks, Cry of the Carnarium. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, and you exile all creatures that were put into the battlefield this turn. If a creature would die, exile it instead. Not only does this remove any death triggers from a lot of creatures, but it also gets them out of graveyards and stops their when this creature dies ability. Very powerful card. Even if you're not going to get a lot of value out of it, killing creatures later that turn can save you in a lot of situations. We only run one of those. Next is 1 copy of Crushing Canopy. You either destroy a creature with flying or enchantment. It's versatile and protects us from stuff that the deck can't really deal with well. Next, Bonus Hunger. 3 mana for an instant, which says each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you have the City's Blessing, each opponent sacks half the creatures he or she controls rounded up. I love this card, especially if you need to get some kind of board wipe out. It can slow your opponents down a lot for just 3 mana. Overall, really decent card. Really decent card, but it lacks the flexibility for us to put more copies. Next is Sinister Sabotage. 3 mana, counter target spell, surveil 1. Pretty simple, allows us to get some selected, allows us to fix our next draw, and counters a spell. Very value packed for 3 mana. Next, Murder. Simple, 3 mana, destroy target creature. Only running one of those, nothing much to say about that. Next is another Crushing Canopy, but in Russian. So we run one of those just because it protects us from stuff we can't deal with. Next is Notion Rain. 3 mana, surveil 2, draw 2, and then deal 2 damage to yourself. Very good. It allows us to not only get surveil synergy, but allows us to fix our draws, and for the mere cost of 2 life. Overall, I love that card so much. Next is Disinformation Campaign. 3 mana, when it enters the battlefield, everyone discards a card and you draw a card. And then whenever you surveil, you may return it to your hand. We can cycle this and get a crap load of value out of it. You can I would suggest putting more copies of it into the deck, preferably 4, because it is just that powerful of a card. But this isn't Dimir Surveil, so we only went with 1. Next, we're going down to Reaver Ambush. Very underestimated card. 3 mana, exile target creature with power 3 or less. Not only does it get rid of problematic weak cards that are usually for synergy, such as Twilight Prophet, but it also just provides some decent value for 3 mana at instant speed. Next, we're going to Golden Demise. 3 mana board wipe. Every creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn, but if you have the City's Blessing, it only affects your opponents. Decent card, good against swarm decks or token decks. I would suggest putting this in the sideboard, but main board works as well. Next, we're going down to 2 mana cards. First, we have Passwell Adept. 2 mana for 1/3, and then you pay 3 mana. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. We'll go through some of the combos this has, but if you ultimate Vrasko with this, or get Yargle onto the field, your opponents are going to be taking a nasty amount of damage. So we run 3 of those in the deck. Next, Simple Pimple, Anticipate. 2 mana, look at the top 3, put 1 into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library. Simple gives us some actually very nice options for only 2 mana, so not a bad card. It replaces itself if you're late in the game and you just want to start drawing cards to get more powerful things. Next is Rogue's Gloves. 2 mana for artifact equipment. 2 mana to equip, and whenever the equipped creature deals damage to a player, you may draw a card. This also has the energy with Passwell Adept, and it's very good when you just want to restock your hand. Next is Nightveil Sprite. 2 mana for a 1/2 flyer. Whenever it attacks, you surveil 1. Very, very underestimated card in my opinion. Not only do you get to surveil and fix your draws, but it also is just a good, decent flyer, and it has synergy with Disinformation Campaign, which really, what more do you want? Next, Negate. 2 mana, counter target non-creature spell. Simple and effective. We run 2 of those in the deck. Next is House Guild Mage. 2 mana for a 2/2. Pay 2 and tap it. Target creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step, which means you can permanently tap down a big threat, or pay 3 mana, tap Surveil 2. So you can either use this to keep a big threat locked down, or you can use this to surveil and fix your draws. It has a lot of use early game as a not only decent blocker, but decent for tapping down scary berry things. But also, its late game surveil allows you to pretty much run away with the game if you're playing the control. Next is Gaia's Blessing. 2 mana for a sorcery, which, sorry this is in Russian. Basically, you you draw a card, you shuffle 3 cards from your graveyard into your library, and then you draw a card. If this was put from your library into your graveyard, however, you instead shuffle your graveyard into your library. Protects us against mill, and if there are goodies that we want to get back, we can just surveil it into the graveyard for extra value. Next is Treasure Map. You should all know what this does. 2 mana for an artifact. You pay 1 and tap it to scry 1 and put a counter on it. Then when it has 3 or more counters, you transform it into Treasure Cove and create 3 treasure tokens. Treasure Cove basically says, tap, add a colorless mana to your mana pool, or tap it, sacrifice a treasure, draw a card. Very, very, in my opinion, amazing card for 2 mana. The flip land is amazing, and honestly, just being able to pay and scry 1, very, very good in a control deck. Next is Moment of Craving. Simple, effective, 2 mana. Target creature gets -2/-2 until the end of turn, and you gain 2 life. It can save you in a pinch, and it can get rid of some problematic threats. We have run 3 of those. Now we're down to the 1-drop, so almost there. 1 mana for Pilfering Imp. It's a 1/1 flyer. Then if you pay 2 and tap it, sacrifice it, target opponent reveals their hand, you choose an online card from it. That player discards that card, and then you can only use this as a sorcery. This is a very, very good card in my opinion. Sorry, I'm super sick. Not only does it give you a turn 1 and turn 2 play, but it also allows you to either swing in with a tiny 1/1 or remove a problematic card from your opponent's hand if you know they're playing a beatdown or threats that you can't deal with. Card in town to anyone. Next, the last card in the deck. Opt, 1 mana, scry 1, draw a card. Hate that card so much. It provides so much value. It's stupid. Wizards, why did you print it? Anyway, enough of me ranting. Now it's time for the land count. So first, we run 2 Simic Guild Gates. You can tap add a green or a blue to your mana pool. We also run 2 Golgari Guild Gates and 2 Dimir Guild Gates. So we have 6 in total that basically allow us to access all of the color in the deck. Next we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 islands. Next we have 1, 2, 3 forests, because there isn't a lot of green. Green is mostly there to enable the Golgari side of the deck. And finally we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 black, 4 green, we have 6 black, 4 green, 6 blue, and 6 guild gates. So the mana is actually very, very evenly spread out. Green is the only color we kind of sacrifice because there's not a lot of green in the deck. But besides that, it doesn't really hamper the deck too much. Anyways, I just want to talk about a few quick things with some of the cards in this deck. And they mostly have to do with Passwell Adept. So we have Passwell Adept, and I'm just going to bring out all the combo cards you can get with him. First combo card, as you may have noticed, is Vraska Golgari Queen. If you deal damage to a player, they lose the game. But Pastoral Adept allows you to get through those defenses. Also, Yargle is just stupid damage threat to deal with if it's unblockable. Besides that, you mainly just want to be throwing out counter spells, killing your opponent's creatures, and slowly building up mana and card advantage with this deck until you hit a win condition. One important thing to know with this deck, though, is if you have a win condition, don't play it straight away. Doing that's going to draw you some attention if you're in a multiplayer game, but it also means that your opponent's going to want to answer it. Keep answers up for their answers, just so your win condition can actually win you the game. Anyway, that was the first deck tech of today. Sorry that took so long. Very fun deck to play. Not very fun to play against, but its weaknesses include beatdown, such as green-red dinosaurs, and token decks. But the board wipe's there to kind of mitigate those two effects. Anyway, have a great day. I'll see you for the second deck tech.